So since I've seen you last, boy, did we simplify. The last time I spoke with you, we had 9 fleets, and different types of airplanes. We were flying a total of 9. And if you include the training we were starting for the 350 program. And now we're down to 7.3, the 320 family of 319, 2021, which, it's a 737 family too, of dash 800 or 800 and the MAX. So we got those for the single-aisle airplanes, and then we have now just the 777 and the 78. So only 4 fleets again, and boy, has that made it much easier for us to actually to work together and try to continue. Since you gentlemen left, we have continued to try to harmonize procedures as best as possible. Not make an Airbus a Boeing or a Boeing an Airbus, no. But I can tell you today, the first time since I've seen you both, that now all 14,000 American airline pilots, when you go around, they all say, go around toga, flap something. Everybody says exactly the same 3 items. And so, and we've brought a lot more together. So, for years, up until this past January, every time you would turn in on a final approach and join the localizer, you'd say something completely different depending on what fleet you were flying. We no longer have it different. It's the same now. We still have different procedures, obviously, for the different fleets. So, and we've been working through that. We did a whole lot of changing in January. We're not going to change again until probably September, and then we'll just look at what we've just done and see how successful it is, and maybe tweak some from there. So that's where we are in procedures. We want to be the world's best. To be the world's best, you have to be the world's safest. And you have to be reliable. You have to show up on time. You have to move passengers or cargo from point A to point B on schedule. So to do that, the more that things are exactly the same every time you come to work, that's great. Because as you know, once you get there, there's nothing that's going to be the same, even as your last trip. We're learning every single time. Every single time you go to work, you learn something new. So we're doing our part to try to make things the same. Other things that have happened since I've seen you last, we had this thing called COVID came into the world. I was just talking here and saying that if you would talk to me in December of 2019, I was just telling everybody in the world that we're heading into the roaring 20s. This is going to be the best thing that ever happened. Here comes the 20s, and in the year 2020, we're going to blow the socks off the aviation world. We are lined up to do it. So it's all my fault when I said that what happened. So I've learned my lesson not to preach that anymore without checking in first. And so 2020 came, and we were happy to still be gainfully employed for some of us at the end of the year, and then trying to bring people back in 2021. We thought shutting down an airline was the hardest thing to do in the world. I was your DO when this came along, and so we had gone through. Did any of you fly the Super 80 when we finished up flying the airplane? Okay, yeah. When you were flying the Super 80, you remember, did you fly it right at the end when we parked the airplanes, or was it prior to that? Prior to, okay. Right at the end, for some reason, probably because we didn't have you any longer flying the airplane and telling us how to do it right, we ended up with 6 pitot tube events that froze on the Super 80 fleet, and that had never happened before. 6 times within about a 2-month period, we had 6 of them. One of them turned into a high altitude underspeed event with a stall, passengers on board. So with that going on, we had, and that was about my 2nd week as your DO. That was when that came along. So the FAA is telling me you're going to have to ground the Super 80 fleet, all 67 airplanes or so that we had at that time. And I said, okay, let's look at other alternatives here. So we started checking all the pitot tubes that we could. I gave our company 1 weekend to do it. It was a Friday afternoon. Everything back in those days fell on a Friday. And we headed into the weekend, and we checked all but about 20 of the airplanes. So we grounded those still on Monday. But the other airplanes we had back in the air, and pitos are working fine. So we're checking voltages, checking the hardware, everything. The pitot tubes are working. And we continue to have events. So as we continue to have those events, I told the FAA, here's what we're going to do. We're going to cap the airplane at 25,000 feet, unless it's severe clear above. If it's just a clear day, not a cloud in the sky, going up in as high as you want to. Otherwise, we're going to stop at 25,000 feet. That in itself is a dangerous thing to do because 25,000 feet, you've increased your turbulence risk to flight attendants in particular and passengers. But it was the best way that we could do. We never did find out what happened at the end of that event. We ended up parking the airplanes a good 8 months later before we ever got to the actual facts on that. That's the only unsolved issue I have in my career is what in the world happened with those pitot tubes. So anyway, we're still looking. We've got a team right now working on 5G, and I've told them after 5G we get out of that. Let's see if we can go back and at least, even though we're not flying them anymore, let's get to the bottom of that story. Yes, sir.
I was just going to say, I had the NDA when we had one of those events, and we were going up to Denver, and I spent lots of time because I kept refusing the aircraft until they took off the bottom and found out that they had done some kind of wash job and never connected the pitot tube back together underneath the floor.
Yeah.
And that's how we got it.
I remember that one. There's some others where we found some bugs in the pitot system. We had residual water. We found all kind of things, but no really smoking bullet on what it was across all the fleet. So, so that one came along. That was an event to live through. Just after that, the Boeing flying the 737s. Were any of you flying the 737 when all of a sudden we found out that we were flying the HUD, the head-up display, with parts that were not FAA certified? I don't know if any of you were flying that then. So when we called the FAA on this one, we said, okay, here's where we are. The FAA now, and we have become really good friends. So we talk a lot, and as we're working through this one. We said, here's the good thing. We have 5.5 million hours of flight time that we can look back on and say that that worked. It only failed 160 times in 5.5 million times of flights. So it's actually safer that we continue to use the HUD with these non-FAA certified parts while we go through the process of getting FAA certified parts for the HUD. And you know what? The FAA said, we agree with you, continue on. So that was the second real thing that my wife stopped seeing me come home for when that happened. COVID came along. I'm not going to waste your time with all the things we changed in COVID. I will tell you this. So all of a sudden overnight you're going to park about 400 of your 900 airplanes, you're going to park at least 400 of them one weekend. Can you think of some things you might need if you're going to go park 400 airplanes? Okay. How about, let's start number one. What about space to park them? Where do you want to put them? You can't put 400 at DFW. What about hail season in Tulsa? Should we park them up there? What about Miami, maybe hurricane season, or Tampa? Where do you want to put these things? So every other airline in the country was thinking the same thing. So the desert filled up pretty quickly. So it's covered. Tulsa ended up being a really good option for us, and everywhere in the world it became a good option for us. But what else do you need if you're going to park those airplanes and park them for a long period of time? How about chocks to put under the wheels? There weren't enough chocks in the world to park those airplanes. We had to go out and build our own chocks. We had to make chocks. We set up a chalk shop in maintenance to make chocks. How about engine covers? Okay, and we're not this big. How about engine covers? Okay, so we had to go out and make engine covers. We started producing our own engine covers and all these things. And speaking of pitot tubes, it'd be nice to cover those up, wouldn't it? If you're going to be parking for about a year. So anyway, we had to cover all that. So we did all that. We had to come up with new rules about how closely you can park an airplane to an active runway, which wasn't legal going into COVID. And so we shut down about every parallel runway in the world to use it as parking space everywhere. That was just to going in. We thought coming out of COVID was going to be the easiest thing we ever did. Boy, did we blow that one. You saw what happened to us when we came back to work. It was like watching, what was it? It's like watching some of those really funny movies you watch as a child, when the cartoon, where they get everything running and the engine's running and then the car moves about 8 feet and stops. That's what happened to our airline. And if you look at what the reasons behind it, it was not because pilots didn't show up. It wasn't because flight attendants didn't show up. It was because we didn't have fuelers to fuel the airplane. The fuelers didn't show up. The ground baggage cart drivers didn't show up. The caterers didn't show up. The people who sold hamburgers in the airport lobbies didn't show up. All that, the infrastructure didn't show up, and so you can't operate very long without that. If you were a fuel driver going into COVID, fuel truck driver, and at an airport, working for the local fuel vendor here, if you were doing that, what might you have done during COVID? You probably became a long-range cargo driver, because cargo now is not carried on airplanes anymore, so the cargo industry took off. The cargo flying industry took off. Boy, I could tell you stories there forever. But what happened was we lost all those drivers. Menzies fuelers, they lost all their drivers. These people became very high-paid commercial drivers on long-range trucks, so they had to train new ones. And that took 90 days for us to get new drivers. That's how long it takes to get a CDL, the commercial driver's license. So all that was going on, and it just took forever for us to get the airline running again. Thank God it is running again. It's running and doing really well. We're flying about just over 3,000 flights a day now, so carrying about 500,000 people a day. On some days, 600,000 people in a day. Running with somewhere between about an 85 and a 92% load factor on any given day. If the load factor is below 85%, which for all of our career, 85% was a full airplane, we thought, because we're trying to non-rev, right? We're trying to get around and go somewhere. 85% was awful. 85% is now every day and up into the 90s. So we're really thankful for that. I was just talking at the table here about how our route structures changed. We used to live on business travel. Business travel was everything. It was where most of your money was made. You do all this other stuff, and yeah, when you flew to Hawaii, those were all your dividend miles people that were on that trip. Boy, has that changed. If you go anywhere today within 10 miles of the coastline, flying in anywhere within 10 miles of the coastline, we're charging you a lot of money to get there. Those recreational fares are now at least as high as what the business fares were. So we've really changed our airline from a business airline, which we thought we'd forever be. We're a recreational airline. We're flying you where the current market wants to go. And everybody wants to go within 10 miles of the water. That's where they want to go when they hop on an airplane. So that's where we're taking them. We're taking them within 10 miles of the water. If you're watching the news these days, when you see something about an airline, which means anything we've done, if we blow a tire, it's on the news. You're seeing that you've got some trouble with ATC, with air traffic control. The folks down in Jacksonville Center, they're working 6 days a week. They're supposed to be working between 4 and 5. They're working 6, so they're tired. FAA is trying to train enough controllers to replenish Jack Center, and that's just taking forever. All your Florida and South American travel goes through Jack Center, so there are capacity restrictions there if we don't have enough controllers on a given day. Rocket launches, as we all know, the rocket launches we're having used to be one every week maybe, and now it's 4 or 5 a day. Rocket launches in some part of the country, and so you have airspace restrictions there. What else did we go through? We went through the Afghanistan evacuation. I'm really proud of our company and what happened there. If anyone ever asks you about the Afghan evacuation, one airline in the world had 100% of its flights go and work. 100. And 100%. It was 104 flights for us. And so 104 flights on the 777, just the 777 fleet. We put those together. We lived in the IOC command center for 3 weeks. I did. And we got all 104 of those flights done, and with complete success. Over 5,000 people moved out of Afghanistan on American Airlines. Absolutely some of the proudest I've ever been in my life, and of the crews, because of the volunteerism and the going out of your way to try to help people in the world. It was incredible. So that was a big plus. We've had a lot else going on. It seems like every time you turn around, there's something else coming your way. So it's busy. There's a lot happening. Where are we going from here? I told you we're the biggest, and yes, we still are. We're still trying to be the best. I think I could put the numbers and say we're the safest. So at least we have that category. We want to be the most reliable and to be the most on time. It's working. For the last 3 months, the way the plans come together is working. Where are we focusing our attention? A lot of it in logistics, really trying to make sure that the airplanes are taken care of, that they're maintained well. So anyway, you can be really proud of the airline today. It's doing a good job in serving customers as well as we ever have. So that's good. The challenges we're going to have next are going to be some of the new fleets coming in. We're going to be crossing the Atlantic starting next year once again with the single aisle airplane. Some of you did it in the 7.5. Anybody fought the 757 across the 7.5? Did you go across the Atlantic with it? Yep, got some head nodding. Yep, so we did some of that. What a great airplane. That's the only, boy, I tell you what, I can compare the 350, if I compare it with one airplane, it's the 7.5. It flew like that, but still I'd say the 7.5 flew better than the 350. I just love that airplane. It was hard to beat. But what I will say is that this time we're going to do it with what's called the Airbus 321 XLR for extra long range. The changes there are going to be, okay, you're flying a little bit lower because that wing is still the same old small wing. Flying a little lower, flying a little slower. I jokingly say it's a good thing it flies lower because it's flying as slow as it flies. You want it out of the way of everything else that's crossing the Atlantic, so it's going to be down here low. Low in the Atlantic in the wintertime is no trouble at all. Low in the Atlantic in the summertime on the southern routes is a big difference. You've got thunderstorm lines now to go around, so that's going to be a challenge for our crews. But that's not the when you look in my eye and you see me with a little concern about that fleet in the future, it's not about anything I just mentioned. What it's about is the qualification of the flight crew members that are going to be flying that airplane. So you're going to be flying a single aisle airplane across the Atlantic, with Atlantic service, and so if you're doing that, you know you're not doing it from Miami, and you're not doing it from Charlotte. You know you're going to be doing it from the Northeast because that's going to give you the shortest route. So where are our least senior pilots located on the single aisle fleet? Okay, all right, so I can't tell you where this airplane is going, but I can see your heads nodding. Now, if you're going to be there and we're going to train you to fly across the ocean and you're doing this out of those bases, how long do you think you're going to be based in those bases before you move somewhere else? So it's going to be a bit of a change and a challenge to all of us to keep qualified crew members in these bases where that airplane is going to be serving. We'll probably go other places with it, probably toward the south, but the majority of it's going to be going across the Atlantic. So, and that brings me into probably, I'll just bring this up and then you maybe just ask me questions. But the other part of this is, John, who are you hiring these days? If you look around, I'd love to hire every single one of you to come back because of your experience. I would please come on back. Can you find new birth certificates and come on back? Do you remember the person we had in the company who found a Bible, a Bible that had his birth date in it? And, remember that? Okay. Yeah, we need to all find one of those about 5 years back at least, and come on back. If I could see your qualifications, boy, I'd be the first person to try to make a rule to bring you all back, because we could use you. The folks that are coming in, it's not that they're bad. I was inexperienced one time, so were you. We went through those years, but you know what? I didn't fly to some of the places we fly in when I was that low time. And so our challenge right now is going to be bringing low time people in and making sure that we, as we bring them in, that we train them right. And it's almost all the airlines now have started what they call back to basics courses for crew members, so that we can remind our crews of the importance of standard operating procedures, not getting creative in the airplane. You know, I mean, when you were all flying and we were all flying together, you never wanted to hear somebody say, "Hey, watch this." You know, okay, that was. There's nothing that comes good after either hold my beer or watch this. You know, so anyway, yeah, you don't want the creativity there. Let's get creative somewhere else. But trying to get people to just simply follow standard operating procedures it can be a challenge with the youngest of the people coming in the door. I'm used to seeing your faces walking up and down the hall. You walk up and down the training center, the academy or training center these days, and so we'll see some of the people, and you think you're in a high school, you know, and you say, "Oh my gosh," you know, and a whole lot of people that you don't know initially, you know. So anyway, I have a lot of fun every week. I get to speak to our new captains class, and it's huge. You know, it's probably at least 25 people a week that we talk to, and but you know, it used to be that we had a certain experience level, and now I'm looking and asking the question, okay, who was hired with the airline in the last 5 years? Almost all the hands. How about anybody here hired as recently as 2 or 3 years ago? And the other hands go up. And so they're going to captain at into their second and third year. Some of the regionals are having captains, and I was just talking about this, the captains that going into this de-icing season, it's their first de-icing season as a captain or a first officer. Think about that one. And that's on the regionals. So if you're us, what do we want to do? We want to look at where the challenges might be, focus our training there, and emphasize the importance of following SOPs and how those SOPs keep us out of trouble. So anyway, there's a whole lot going on. I can answer questions on just about anything for you. And in this, I think I still have the best job in the world to be able to leave the office about every Friday, almost every Friday, and get out and just fly an airplane and have fun and do that and meet people and still remember the fun of that. That's the best part. Doing the day job can be fun too. You just can't let it run over you. It runs over my wife, unfortunately, way more than it runs over me. No one in these jobs can ever feel like you spend as much time as you want to with your family. But I do spend it with my puppy. I do that, so still take care of that. How about some questions? Are there anything you might want to ask me? Anything you might want to know about? Yes, sir.
How many 7/8 is Boeing goes?
At least, I think we're back up to 15. We just had one come within the last 2 weeks. It came from Charleston. And that was, I cannot tell you how upset we are with them right now. We've been upset with Airbus too. I mean, it's not like Airbus is delivering on time either. So Airbus is behind in their schedule. But the 7-8, it seems like every time they think they're coming out of the woods, something new happens. And rather than the FAA saying, okay, stop your deliveries, Boeing will go ahead and stop the deliveries and pull it down before the FAA comes over. So they're pulling back the deliveries and stopping the delivery process for about anything that comes up. This latest one on looking at the computer program that tells you whether or not you can change the configuration. You got to be kidding. Because of that, we can't deliver an airplane. There were some real quality issues around the doors and with the horizontal stabilizer, things that are important parts of the airplane, obviously. But we don't want a delivery for those things. But this latest one, boy, that was hurtful for all of us. You might have seen that we're not going to be able to serve Madrid the way we want to. We picked that route as the first route that we're dropping for now, or really reducing in a huge way compared to what we would normally do and you'd normally fly in the summertime. We're going to pull that way back because we don't have the 787 to do it. So we need a whole lot more, and we need Boeing to come on through. I spent the full day with them yesterday. It's really not much better. We're going to take our first MAX in over a year in the coming weeks. So we're back to delivering MAXes. And oh yeah, we went through that one too. That was something else that came our way, working with the regulators and bringing the MAX back in. So it's been a challenging time since I've seen you last, but it's been fun. Yes. Yeah, it just doesn't fit the route system. You could run it every day from Miami to London, every day. You could do it and make money. Unfortunately, that's about the only place that airplane would actually make money for us with our route system. So I don't see it coming anytime soon. Maybe down the road, but we'll see. The 777-200s, that we have now are pretty much all over 20 years old. So we've got to be looking at some replacement. It is really good if you can do it though, to try to stick with one basic type of fleet, the fewest number of fleet. So I really don't see much hope for going to the 350 right now down the road. I would say we probably stay with the 7-8-ish product, somewhere. But who knows? We'll see where that goes. The competition is always really good. I always tell people, if you're going to buy a Ford, drive a Chevy into the lot. And so if you're going to buy a Boeing, you better have an Airbus you show up in to get a better deal. So it all helps. That's why Air France buys 777s and Airbuses, and Lufthansa for that matter. What else is going on? Oh, I love you. I love you. We want to do two things. We both want to do the electric and we want to do the supersonic. I keep hoping that they can make me the supersonic guy, since I've kind of finished up my career. Just put me on that program and I'll stick around until it flies. I think the last I saw on first flight dates are going to be about 2029. Last I saw, that hurt my feelings. I was thinking 2026 I can live with, but 2029 it makes it hard for me to go to my bosses and say, hey, put me on that project. The other part that was hard was the engine. Up until a few weeks ago, they didn't have an engine, and they still don't really have an engine. They have an agreement from some different companies that say they'll build one, but they need an engine first. Once they get the engine, then that'll come. I would guess, in the very best of worlds, 2029, so that's not going to happen. So let's say 2032, somewhere in there, and hopefully we'll actually be in that business. And that would be one that we would want to, really look at flying ourselves. With our team.
What type of engines are you looking at?
What type of engines? It's the company Boom. They're actually trying to get an engine manufacturer to work with them. Yeah, they had solar. That would be nice. But might need a cable, but either plug it in or attach to the airplane in front of you. Yeah. So actually, the Boom people are looking. They're talking to. I think there's a consortium of people who are saying they'll work with them and design an engine, but it's going to be a while. I mean, you just don't develop a supersonic engine in a short period of time. So it's going to be a while. The other end of that is electric propulsion, and when the company made an investment of about $25 million into the company called Vertical. Now that's a bladed transport. I'm not sure whether that one has 5 total seats, maybe one pilot, 4 passengers. Have any of you had an opportunity to go to any events where you could actually try to fly one of these simulators for any of the electric vehicles? I don't know if you have. I have been to one of those. I flown the one that's built by Joby, just the simulator version of the Joby device. I'll call it a device because you don't bring many of your flying skills along. You pull this to go up, you do this, you turn, the rudder is a twist of the stick, and you can maneuver it. You can forget about crosswinds, it's all taken care of, and you just say, yeah, I'd like to go over there, so you do this, and it goes over there. Those flight control systems are pretty much designed to be autonomous, and until the world is willing to accept autonomy, there'll be a pilot seat. And so you've got a pilot who is driving the autonomy there, so it's really easy to fly. We have one company that I'm actually trying to help a little bit. They're looking at retired airline pilots to say flying these transports around. So keep your eyes and ears open. for if you want to do a little bit of that. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of these days some of that's not demoed in the Dallas area, believe it or not, as the years roll by. They're pretty small, 4 people going anywhere, that's not a big load. So it's not really something that American Airlines is going to crew with our 14,000 pilots. We're not going to do that. At least I wouldn't see it going that way. But we have invested in it because people have to get to the airport, and it is going to be a way to get there in the future. So that's it. I'm way more excited about Boom than the Supersonic, though, I got to tell you. Okay, what else? Yes, sir.
You said we weren't business airlines anymore, but what is the percentage of business travel we're doing?
Oh, I'd have to check, so don't quote me on this, but I'm guessing it's still down around between 8, 9, 10%, which is way over where it was during the COVID days. And so many companies now are working. What a different world! I mean, today a lot of the large companies. I'm talking Boeing here. They require you go to the office 3 days a week, and you pick the other 2 days a week you don't want to go to the office. You pretty much figure, where those are going to be, and they have a percentage of people that have to come in. I think there's 1 day a week everyone has to overlap, so you actually see people. But so for business travel, there has to be a reason to do it. It's getting better. It's getting better, and some business people are coming back. Quite honestly, the recreational travel is today as expensive as that business travel was back when we were flying a lot of business people. So the airlines really, we're saying, bring it on, that's fine, but let's keep the yield numbers up where they are with the recreational travel. It seems like everyone in the world is finding some way to get out of town and to go to the beach. And they're all picking American Airlines to get there, so we're happy about that. Yes, sir?
I just heard on the radio today that they're starting a new airline over in Huntsville, which we might be in competition with, and just put them out.
I saw that. I missed the name of the airline because I walked through a room when I saw it on. Did anybody pick up the name of the airline?
It's supposed to be,
What was the question?
it's supposed to be nice for people that have a lot of money, luxury,
Yep.
like down in Colorado.
Yep.
And
Is
it's
there-
from over field, so.
Is there one called JXL or something? JSX, is that it? Yeah. I just flew with someone the other day that knew about this, and actually they flew their family with an animal, having an animal. Of course, that's me with the 5-pounder here. But they say it's really easy to travel with an animal on that particular airline, and I think there's room for them. I think their whole cabin is set up as in essence, a first class cabin with a lot of room, and pets do really well there. So it's a niche market, and it's going to work well. Our folks that are trying to determine, where we're going with our LOPA, we call it list of passenger accessories, which is that's a funny term for what are you doing with your seats in your cabin, and galley equipment and all that. We have less first class than we used to. Internationally, you might have seen we're moving away from the true international first class. It's going to be international business for us now. But so I'm seeing a fewer seats. Fortunately, though, I'm seeing a little more legroom. Back in the business select, not business select, but the main cabin extra seats, which now have grown way further back in the airplane. So we have a lot more legroom in the economy class than we used to. So that's what's going on in the cabin. But yeah, that airline, I don't think it'll be anything that'll hurt American Airlines, and kind of glad to see them doing that. So that's good. Yes, sir. A couple of questions. Let me take the one in the back first. And
Okay,
then,
so you said we have 14,000-ish. We still have the mass retirement starting a few years ago. You have
Yep.
400, 500, 600 a year for the next 4, 5, 6 years.
more
That's-
than that.
Yeah, more than that. So that's new hires every year.
Yep.
So training is crazy, I'm
Yep.
sure, for everything.
Yep.
You kind of alluded to with 2 and 3-year captains.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Now, and are we still kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul with
From-
the regionals?
Yes.
So
Yes.
they've got to fill their shoes too.
Right.
And just one other part on top of that, is age 67 still being kicked around?
It's kicked around, and it's kicked upward by American Airlines. Why? Why? If I put up on a board behind me, I didn't want to bring a present.
So you can stay on 2 more years.
Say again?
So you can stay on 2 more years.
Oh, I'd love to. There's not one of us probably in this room that was really happy to see your retirement day. And aren't we just so blessed to be in a career where most of us say, wow, I wish I could still come to work the next day. I mean, there are not many careers that offer that satisfaction. So yeah, I'd love to. I'll sign up for 2 more years anytime. But if I were to show you on a slide behind me where other airlines are with their retirements and where we are, it's not pretty for us. The other airlines would all be about right here, coming floor up to about right here, about 450 to 500 a year, kind of the first number you gave me. But we're up here at 800 for about a 5-6 year period. We're almost 800 for that period. So we're going to have to replace more than the competition is going to have to replace. Our regionals have more of a pain because we're trying to draw from them with the flow-through. Flow-through is a good thing for pilots, but at the same time, they're not contracted to stick with us. They have the flow-through option, but if Delta walks in the door and says, hey, we'll give you X number of dollars if you come this week, they'll go with Delta. Okay. Hey, there's something else I want to mention here before I go on. Have you ever in your life seen pilots who, after, say, 3 years with us, 3 years with the airline, leave and go to another carrier, not because they don't like us, but because it's closer to home to live somewhere else? We're getting that. We're getting it, Delta's getting it, United's getting it. If we've got someone who lives in Memphis, they're probably going to try to go to work for the cargo carriers. And it's going to happen up to about the 3-year point, which is amazing. I've never seen that movement before. You know, once your name's on a list with a date, you don't want to move ever again. And but people are doing it. It's a different generation these days. People are putting a lot more. Here's something. If you're a check pilot, okay, so you're a check pilot. Charlie, how many months did you work of your career as a check pilot where you worked more than the minimum schedule?
Say every month.
Every month. Okay, so Charlie says every month. Do you know today we ask check pilots to work above the minimum? And like Charlie and me and everybody else, we've already said, bring it on, bring it on. You know why? Because of this. We may as well make that money this month. Let's do it. We're having to staff for that minimum level because pilots aren't agreeing to work anymore. Same on the line. I don't want to work more. We'll offer you premium. No, I'm going home. So it's a completely different look and from what we're used to with people not crewing. Yes, sir.
So what about the concept of hiring pilots? Seniority is everything in our job. At Envoy, when you work your way up to your 777 in your career, and actually, if you've got a seniority number as an Envoy pilot, you're not leaving and going to Delta, United, Southwest. You're going to stay here because you got your seniority number for life. What about that concept, which is from day one, okay, you're an American pilot, you just happen to fly a smaller airplane?
Yeah, and I'm not at the table, so I don't put the agreements together. But you've got a great point. It could, and I'm sure it could work. The nice thing about if you are going to flow through, there's not really an interview for you as you go through.
We're still in a way our pilots anyway.
Yep.
They just offer them jobs a year or two before they have to flow.
Oh, I know.
And
And
now they have seniority number, that'd be a different story.
yeah, if they already had a seniority number with the company, maybe that would save them from walking away. And it may come to that. It may. You ask about where the pain was there. Yeah, we're not seeing. I mean, we're definitely seeing that we're getting a different group of pilots coming for us, and we're going to have to look at our qualifications and find out. Okay, what are your qualifications? It's the same thing that's always been in the check pilot world. You're saying, okay, where are you now? Here's where I want to take you. What do I need to teach you to take you where you need to go? So, but we're starting at a different point. It might not be a whole lot worse, but it's definitely a different point. And so we're having to modify our training program to take these people from where they are to where we want them to be. That's noticeable, and that's taking a lot of work. Operating, one other point there, the operating experience, once you come out of the simulator and you go to OE and doing your time there, we're seeing even today an extended time as an average of what it takes to fly with the check pilot to get up to standard that the check pilot says, okay, they're ready to go. So we're seeing that now, and all other airlines are seeing the same thing. It's just a younger, less experienced group of people that are coming in, and that's what it's going to bring to the table. So we have to be ready for that and be able to train it. I think I missed a question down here.
Yeah, you had mentioned supersonic development. Are they working on development that would be an airplane that can fly over land, or is it going to be water only?
As I understand it, the boom is going to have a smaller footprint, but it's still going to be there. So it has to be proven. They have a demonstrator. The demonstrator has not yet flown either. So we have to see what that footprint looks like. So generally, they would tell you today, if they were standing here, we're designing it for over water, long routes, but they're hoping that the footprint is small enough that they can fly some routes that are over land. So I'm kind of like you. I think I'll be surprised if they're able to do that. Yeah. Good question. Thank you. What else? In the back.
My son-in-law would like to know when he's gonna get a contract.
Okay. First of all, your son-in-law should be really happy you had your daughter when you did, and that he is this age today, and have these good-looking years. I wish we all had these kind of years in front of us for a lot longer. Anyone coming in today is sure appointed for the new hires today. What a great time to come to the airline, and I hope it's always that way. When? Sooner rather than later, and that's probably anything other than that, APA would not be, they'd be saying I was here saying something that I shouldn't be saying. But I'll sure say this, the APA has and the company have really come to the table in the last weeks. And just reading oh, by the way, I'm an APA member, probably one of the few management people that you can, that you know who's a dues paying APA member. You can still do that as managing director. And so I do. So with that said, and getting my newsletter and looking at what's there, I'm reading that we're talking a whole lot, and it's getting, things are getting really interesting. I saw a quote on an APA handout the other day, talked about the 1 yard line, but it's going to take a lot to get across that 1 yard line. So I think that's where we are, and we have to interpret that as we can. I'll just be happy when it's done. I'll be really, really happy when we get this next one done. Okay, all right. Yes, sir.
What's the issue with the supersonic engine and a manufacturer? I mean, it's not like there's never been a supersonic engine. What's the holdup?
I think it's probably the risk of saying how many of these things we're going to build, what's it going to cost us to develop it and build it and sell it to these people, how many of their airplanes are they really going to make? If they only make 100 airplanes, we're going to make 400 engines. Is that enough for us as an engine manufacturer to make enough money that we want to focus there and do it? So you can take a fighter aircraft engine today and do it, but the turnaround time or the life cycle for the parts of the engine are just not up there. So this engine has got to live a long time and work very well without a lot of maintenance. The fighter aircraft, yeah, we build you an afterburner engine, even a supersonic cruise engine today, but there are a lot of really life-limited parts in there. So I think that would be the reason that Rolls-Royce pulled out of the, they went as far as they could go. Rolls-Royce said, we're going to build the engine. The last press release from Rolls said, we've taken this as far as we can viably go, and we're going to back and move away from our relationship with Boom because we don't think it's our best future to go there. So I think that's really it. I hope they get a good one. Yes, sir, one more?
Yeah, just speak to the training side of the operation. Is there any thought from your level or above for hiring recently retired pilots as simulator instructors?
Recently we hired as simulator instructors. Yes, we do that now. with the CMP program. So we're always interested in bringing people in and to come and apply to be a sim instructor and to come take a look.
There's one problem we've got right now, and it's going to be addressed in this next contract, but there's language in there that says that we have to give them a lifetime annuity to do it.
That's I've seen that happen before too with one of my best friends, and so he elected not to come back and do that because he didn't want to that. So that has to be worked out so that you can come back. For some people who that don't have that lifetime annuity, we have a lot of people with since we've merged so many times, we have a lot of people with a lot of different backgrounds. And some, it's attractive to come on in and work with the salary that's offered for SMP. And it keeps us involved, so that's, it's not a bad job at all. It's work, I will say that.
Hey, if you offer part-time,
Uh-huh. Yep. Well, let's see what happens. And with this, any roadblocks there. I know I tried personally about 4 years ago for this friend of mine to see if our HR department could address it. They never found a way, so he ended up still retired in North Carolina. But it sure would be nice. I would love to bring a lot of retired people back to do a lot.
there is language in this current contract about that would.
Good. Good. Looking forward to reading. Yes, maybe one more.
What about part-time? I didn't hear mention, what about part-time?
I don't know.
Why not part-time?
Don't.
Maybe I should say.
I guess if the folks that are doing that hiring are able to get enough people full-time, then they're not going to go to part-time until they need more. So, but I really don't know. Part-time would work so well for many of us. Sure would. Okay. All right. Hey, before I bore you too much, I just want to thank you for letting me come back today and speak with you. It's been, this is such a breath of fresh air. If we can just have this like once a week that I get to come to a bar every Tuesday, I would be the happiest guy in the world. But thank you so much for letting me come in and just share with you. Look forward to becoming a member in the near future.